Hello, this is John Lee. I'm celebrating the 75th anniversary of teaching primary care to medical school graduates at the Martinez Residency with my fellow alumni. I'm going to cover the first 50 years from 1950 to 2000. Half of that was during the period of the GP residency, which was created by George Degnan in 1950. And he oversaw the beginning of the conversion to family practice in 1975. Dr. Degnan is one of three pioneer doctors. Before him, there was John Marsh and John Strenzel. Dr. Degnan came to Martinez in 1947. He was a native son in that he went to high school in Richmond. When he returned, he was the first certified surgeon on this side of the Caldecott Tunnel. So John Marsh is the first pioneer. He came to California in the 1830s when it was Mexico, and Alta California, Mexico. He actually went to undergraduate at Harvard, but he had to settle for being a medic in the Army that was attached to the Northwest Territory in Minnesota. He got involved in gun running. There was a woman involved in this, and he had to flee to Mexico. He arrived in 1830s and set himself out as a doctor, eventually gaining enough capital to buy Los Maganos Rancho, which is essentially all of East County. He built this house, and I say it was quinine and gold that helped him. When he got there, he was upset to learn that the local Indians were unfriendly. So he went out to the Native American camp and couldn't help but notice some of the Native Americans in rigors, and he surmised correctly that they were suffering from malaria. Anopheles at that time was rife in the Delta. So he treated them with quinine, and they went from being unfriendly to very friendly, which helped him grow a large herd of cattle that was just ready to go at the time gold was discovered. Simple matter of loading the cattle on flatboats and sending them up to Sacramento. So he did very well. He was on his way to the bank, and something bad happened at this point on Pacheco Avenue, which you've probably passed many times. There is a historic marker here, which relays the murder in 1856. The second pioneer doctor is John Strenzel. He came to Martinez in 1852. He had fled Poland for America, fleeing the Russians who were invading. Some things never change. His horticulture skills, though, is what built this house, not so much his medical practice. And he built this house in 1883, so he was working the land for 30 years. We know it as the John Muir House because John Muir married Strenzel's spinster daughter, Louisa, and they had two daughters. One is Wanda, Mount Wanda, where many of us have hiked. I'm not sure which is which. This is a picture of Louisa as a girl taking the fruits and vegetables to market. You've passed this mural, no doubt, many times, and it's on the underpass of Highway 4. So this is Alhambra Avenue, and this is a six-panel history of Martinez. This is the happy couple on the day of their marriage in 1880. He was 40, she was 30. He put in 10 good years working for the Strenzels, his father-in-law, and was finally economically independent enough to pursue his passion, which of course we all know was wildlife and conservancy. This is the burial site for the Strenzels. This is John Strenzel, the father-in-law, and this is John Muir and Louisa over here in the corner, just south of John Sweat's school. So looking from their windows, they would have looked north and seen the first county infirmary. It was more like a sanatorium. You can see people lounging on the front porch here, and you can also notice the eucalyptus trees on the hilltop, no doubt used as a windbreak. And these residue of some of these trees are still present. This is the current county hospital. We're looking at it from a different angle. So a sanatorium. The second hospital was built in 1914. Shell had set up refineries. Oil had been discovered in the San Joaquin Valley. If you saw the movie There Will Be Blood, starring Daniel Day-Lewis, you would know that story of the discovery of oil. The doctor at this hospital for over 30 years was Dr. Edwin Merrithew. And he was the county medical officer during these years. He had been an intern during the San Francisco earthquake and made rounds in this tent hospital in Golden Gate Park. His family gave me this colorized version of the second county hospital. But in 1947, he was overwhelmed. During World War II, the population had exploded, and we had oil refineries in Central County, steel mills in East County, and of course, shipyards in West County. And this would have been appreciated by George Degnan, who went to high school in Richmond. And he was down at the waterfront from the first day his family moved to Richmond. He had a love of ships. 1947, Merrithew's overwhelmed. Degnan's 33 and steps in. He had attended Berkeley on a football scholarship. Thanks, Steve Marin, for this slide. He went to McGill Medical School in Montreal, and this might be the first link in the chain of our residencies, global awareness. He was also exposed to public access to public health, going to med school in Canada, and he's going to wind up in Britain. But first, he starts off at UCSF in internal medicine in 1939. Now, he had fallen in love and married a rich socialite in San Francisco. Big society wedding before he started the residency. And for his wedding present from his father-in-law, he was given a lifetime membership in the St. Francis Yacht Club. And some of us in the 60s and 70s were treated to graduation celebration at the St. Francis Yacht Club. And we never could figure out how come he was so well known all the way over in St. Francis Yacht Club in San Francisco. And the story of his first marriage explains that. But he quit UCSF after 1 year to train as a surgeon in Britain. And the dean of medicine asked George, "Are you hearing voices?" And he actually had been. His father-in-law was Jewish and had heard about what was going on in Germany and shared that with George. So off he went. His new wife was ambivalent about him leaving because she was pregnant. And they had a daughter named Aubrey, which is actually Degnan's mother's maiden name. George would not see her again until she was 7. As training in Britain, he first joined the Canadian Air Force and went to a 2-year crash residency in surgery in Edinburgh, Scotland. And in 1942, he was stationed in London. And you can just imagine the situation in London. So 1946, he was certified by the Royal College of Surgeons. His marriage did not survive. His 7-year-old daughter grew up and became a psychologist, Dr. Aubrey Degnan, because June Oppen Degnan kept the Degnan name the rest of her life. Interestingly, she founded a literary magazine, the San Francisco Review, so she kept busy in high society. But this endeavor was mostly in support of her brother, and it was a good investment because her brother, George's brother-in-law, got the Pulitzer Prize in Poetry in 1967. But flashing back, he had actually abandoned poetry in the 1930s with the fascism taking over, and he joined the Communist Party. If you saw the movie Oppenheimer, you know that Oppenheimer's brother, Frank, had joined the Communist Party, and that was a big contention in the plot of Oppenheimer's life and in the book and in the movie. And then there was a post-war Red Scare, so George's brother-in-law headed off to Mexico just as George was getting settled in Contra Costa County. He returned in 1958 to America and back to poetry, and 10 years later got the Pulitzer Prize. So in 1947, Dr. Degnan also started feeling overwhelmed, and that's why he started the residency. He needed help with the rise in population. And so in exchange for teaching, he got more hands to help him. In lighter moments, he called it slave labor. In 1954, Rudy graduated. Rudy Leong, who many of us know. I talked to Rudy on Thursday, and he had been planning to come, but he begged off because of mobility problems. He's now 98 years old. This nurse was still here when I came in 72. So while Rudy was there, they were building hospital number 3. hospital that looks kind of like the design of California high schools, outside halls. It was actually a Army design, and so the planning was easy and familiar, and the hospital went up very quickly and was done by the time Rudy did his year. And this is him in front of the hospital. You see Rudy here. George is still alone, and the interview we did with Rudy back in 2010, Rudy gives the detail of what that was like to have George as the only person on call. This was what the hospital looked like when I came, and many of us came. Um, a later date, George is still the only staff, still the only staff. Um, and one of his first requests was for a pathologist. He wanted to know what kind of tumors he was taking out. And he wanted autopsies, and it was resisted by the Board of Supervisors who chastised him, just treat the living. By the mid-50s, he had recruited a seasoned staff, fellow veterans from World War II. And this is what we might call the first generation of registrars. This is Bud Gleffy, his son Dan did the residency. And this is a class in the early 60s. Two faces might be familiar, Walt Carr and Alan Casebolt. Alan, by the way, had just come back from the Congo, where he would later tell us he's sure that he saw a wasting disease that must have been HIV. A closer look at Alan and Walt. And here's Walt in the 1970s with George on rounds. Then came Saul Gong and Ron Fujimoto. I think this is Kent Sack. They're no doubt on the way to the yacht club because one of the few women has got her mink stole. And another woman here, but now we get at the end of the 60s, Jay Aiken and Kent Hobart. Along with the others. And then in 1972, there's another woman, Carol Frias. I laughed with her a little bit. So again, you have Kent Hobart, Jay Aiken, Chuck Phillips, who got involved in and Joe Barger can testify to this, involved in EMS. In 1973, a bumper year, you have Jay Aiken, you have Rick Huey, both here today. Al Loosley, unfortunately, is no longer with us. Bill O'Shaughnessy, and me, Hobart again. And here is the prime mover of the residency in the years I was there. She was really an executive, executive secretary, if you want. But she really ran the place. And then in 1977, skipping ahead, we get Kate Bennett who smashed that glass ceiling, and also next to her, John Rose, also here today. Pat Harpole here today. reconnected with Miles Graber recently, but he's got a piano recital today, so he couldn't be with us. Um, Other assorted people who no doubt you recognize. So 1980s, no more glass ceiling, and here we have with us today Meg McLeod, Diane Dakin, Sharon Heiner, who organized last night's festivities, and Dana Ware, who was once the Family Practitioner of the Year. She practiced up in Chester, California, I believe. So back to the 50s and 60s, we're not quite done. So Jim Lynch had gotten the Silver Star in the Battle of the Bulge, a heck of a story that we got on tape in the reunion in 2010. And also Brian Lee, who Roger Barrow interviewed back then. And he was paratrooper who dropped behind the Japanese lines in Western China. He was working for the CIA, or the forerunner of the CIA. So quite a group. This is a rare photo of Louis Gertman, who we were told was with George from the very beginning as an internist. By the time I came in the 1970s, he was more in doing administration. And looking over to his right is Jay Aiken, who couldn't be with us today. And in the 2010 reunion, we got these veterans from the 50s, these war heroes, back to tell their story. Of course, our residency program in the early years, at least, was heavy on orthopedics and trauma. This is my medical school buddy, Al Loosley, who went on from being a orthopedics registrar to going into sports medicine. And Sam Gross, we had our hands in plaster quite a bit. And then we all learned how to drill burr holes. We have with us today Sam Richards, who has quite a story, which we're going to get on tape this afternoon. A young girl that lived in his town was impressed that he had put burr holes in while on an emergency basis. And she was inspired to come here, and Evan Pulvis graduated in 2018. So back to Degnan in the 60s. He was honored by the Board of Supervisors for 15 years of service. What had he done by then? He had set up a system to follow up patients after discharge, something that was really wanting, for sure, in Alameda, where a few of us studied postgraduate education. And he was always looking to advance universal access. So he set up 3 large regional clinics to make sure that there was good follow-up. So again, thanks to Steve Marin, who got this quote from George, put it in a slide, that doctors need to be engaged in public service and get involved in politics and take a stand, and you'll see he certainly did that. He partnered with George Miller Jr., who was a very influential state senator and chairman of the Finance Committee. And George Miller Jr. was Degnan's political mentor and then ally. And George Miller Jr. Helped get Pat Brown elected governor. He was described as an earthy, engaging man, something that many people would say about Degnan, and had a high reputation. So the Oval Office, this is George Miller II, next to President Kennedy. And he went back to California and enabled the enactment of much Democratic legislation during the first Brown years. So George Miller Jr. with Dr. Degnan started early intervention for families of challenged children and set up George Miller centers. Two still exist today as early intervention programs. He died suddenly in 1969, George Miller Jr. He's only 55. And they renamed the bridge that had been built in 1962 after him. It became the George Miller Jr. Memorial Bridge. Notice at this period, it's a two-way bridge, the only car bridge going across. This is the railroad bridge, which went up first and led to the demise of Port Costa. Everything, the train had dead-ended at Port Costa and had gone on to ferries across to Benicia. Then innovation continued into the 1970s. Dr. Degnan instituted small clinics in Oakley, Brentwood, 8th Street, Concord, and he was interested in prepayment and capitation. And again, I think this is from his time in Canada and Britain. And so in 1974, the CCHP became the first federally qualified, state licensed, county sponsored HMO in the United States. And again, what had been going on in his hometown, Richmond, Kaiser had built the Victory ships and Rosie the Riveter Great Museum in Richmond. And Henry Kaiser had started and developed even more his Kaiser prepaid system, which he thought could be upscaled to a whole nation. And I think it would be nice if it could be. So the Millers in the Oval Office, we've seen George Miller Jr., and here's George Miller III in the Oval Office. She was Nancy Pelosi's right-hand man on health care and was a part of bringing Obamacare to fruition. And if you stopped in front of the showcase up in the George and Cynthia Miller Wellness Center, you will see this note from President Obama. I couldn't have done it without you, George. So George Miller paid homage to George Degnan in the 1990s. In 1991, he praised him as an entrusted friend and valued advisor to both myself and my father. Dr. Degnan has been instrumental in shaping the healthcare system of Contra Costa for nearly 5 decades. He was a pioneer creating our county health services, and his retirement has been a relentless advocate, as we'll soon see. Join me in paying tribute to Dr. Degnan. So George Miller III retired, and a second bridge was built. The first bridge was turned one way, going north to south. The second bridge, two-way. I'm sorry, one way going south to north. This, by the way, is one of those victory ships that was mothballed more as a museum piece than anything else. And of course, we have our own George and Cynthia Miller Wellness Center, kind of blurry. That's Dr. Walker with them. So back to the hospital, the 60s, the registrars, just a summary. I've mentioned all these people. Rudy Leong had returned from Alaska to become a registrar in internal medicine and derm. This is our panel of doctors from the first two decades that were able to attend in 2010. A close-up, Dr. Aiken and Dr. Leong. So I want to spend a little bit of time on Kent Hobart so we don't forget him and his inspiration. This was a spoof slide for graduation night. And you'll notice in 2010 reunion, Dr. Hobart's in a wheelchair. He had woken up in the morning and unable to move his legs. He'd sustained a rare stroke to his spinal cord and was never able to walk after that. But that didn't stop him. He had this dolly slash wheelchair engineered so that he could continue to do surgery. And he continued not only to practice here, but to have his own family practice in Martinez, beloved in the community. And Nancy, who is here today with him, supporting him every step of the way, an inspiration. 1970s, Jay Crockett with us today. He's going to lead a discussion group on teaching family practice residents. This is Mark Will, who came in the 70s as well. Here he is on ward rounds. And he was also available, and we all benefited from his curbside consultations. Here he's looking at an EKG on one of my patients. And I want to mention Herb Sigmund and his passion for international health. He'd been a couple of years behind me at UCSF and had, as a medical student, visit Albert Schweitzer in his clinic in Gabon, I think. And Herb was a free spirit. We all appreciated his personality, and he always had some plan for an excursion abroad. And Roger Barrow came in the late 70s, and he also had a yearn to travel, a global focus. Here he is visiting one of our residents, Canary Webb, who set up her own clinic in Indonesia. And here's a newborn baby that had just been born in this clinic. And it's very appropriate because Roger continued to do obstetrics out of family practice clinic. And he was an enduring role model. In fact, he delivered two successive generations. So in the delivery room, as he was delivering the mother, the grandmother who had delivered the mother. He had delivered the mother from the grandmother. Was also in the room. Quite an experience. Um, and then John Stanger came in 1978. He joined the ER staff after the residency, became a residency director. We'll hear in the next panel discussion. Later went to divinity school and turned that into chairing the ethics committee. Um, and he also was very much involved in international health, particularly in the Balkans, two tours, one in Bosnia, Kosovo, Macedonia. And here he is with the Bosnian medical staff in one of the war hospitals. Roger, again, tsunami relief. And finally, our activities abroad were crystallized into an institution within our institution, the Global Health Fellowship, which Neil Jayasakara put together. Also, he was inspired by Mark Stinson in 1991. He's been involved in a lot of disaster relief as well. And he and Matt Fentress will be giving a story circle this afternoon, we hope, inside the conference room. And this is an example of that. Naaman Shah coming back from India. He had worked in a health commune in India, and also at the time of COVID, which was very frustrating for him. And then Matt Fentress, also international involvement. My wife and I visited him in Burma, as it was called then, and Myanmar, as it's called now. And he's become the co-director with Neil. And his wife, Callie, also became a Global Health Fellow. And they now are part of that long list of residency romances. And here today we have Christy Schold and Neil Jorgensen from 1993, and then Gabe and Sarah from 2006. I had a chance to visit them up in Klamath Falls while they were practicing there. And the Stangers are also an example of a multi-generation. I already mentioned Bud Gleffy, but there have been about 6 or 7 multi-generation families in our residence. So the Stanger family has a trifecta: multi-generation, also global health, also romance. Degnan, in his last decade, he was a unionist. He wanted us to form a union to force him to do what he wanted to do himself. He used that as a political ploy with the Board of Supervisors. It worked for a while, but he got fired in 1973 for going over the budget, which he was unapologetic. And so he called out the troops. He had political contacts with African American ministers in Richmond, and with the Latino community in East County. And they packed the chambers of the Board of Supervisors, and we were on our way to pack them even more. So it worked, and the administration had to retreat. Um, uh, 1975 came and it was clear we needed to convert to family practice. It had been on the scene ever since 1969. And Degnan's first response was, well, wait a minute, we already teach how to talk about sex and money. And he says, and what about people without a family? And we'll just change the sign in the outpatient clinic. And that didn't work. Fortunately, he bonded with the chairman of family practice program at UC Davis and their network, and Dr. Hughes Anders convinced him to join the UC Davis network. They exchanged war stories. They had something in common. They both had an accelerated education during the war years. And he counseled Degnan that you need to, for sure, get a dedicated psychologist to the program, and he did. Hughes Anders also advocated increasing nurses' role in medicine, particularly the FNP program, which I had part in. 1978, must be said, there was a scandal involving the head of the radiology department, the irregular recycling of out-of-date X-rays for silver. Maybe coincidentally, Dr. Degnan retired at this time. He was already 65. None of this really affected the residency. But in the background, there was a stormy transition, and that got covered by the newspaper, Degnan getting his usual share of press. And here you see he was strong enough to issue ultimatums to the board. So 1980 saw a proud moment. Kate Bennett had become the medical staff president. She embraced the cowboy image, but she had the courage that was needed for our refusing to go along with a war beds plan that the Reagan administration, the Department of Defense, had asked all public hospitals to come up with a plan. In our case, we were supposed to increase our capacity virtually overnight by 40 beds and submit a plan. We resisted this, the argument being if you plan for it, it makes it easier to happen. And here, Diane Dakin is here, and she was right next to Kate Bennett. And this was covered by how our medical staff rebuffed the Pentagon, New York Times. And then Markwell was on vacation, happened to run into an ethicist from New York, the Hastings Center. And when Mark said he was from Contra, Costa County, all of a sudden this ethicist got real excited and shared the special edition that they had on whether physicians should prepare for war, the obligation to care for casualties. A summary of what I've just said. The physician is a moral leader. So a proud moment. The person behind that ultimately was Catherine Smith, who approached our medical staff and encouraged us all to join the Physicians for Social Responsibility, which we did. And they were the ones that organized this international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. So they, in being the first mover, got 400 NGOs to join, and the PSR shared in receiving the Nobel Prize. Um, so just what I said. Um, so we'll finish with the question of where to locate the new county hospital. We've known since the 80s that it was necessary, if only because there was a leaky roof. On a more theoretical basis, we had we were not earthquake resilient, and it became nasty. Politics, and George Degnan emerged from retirement to lead the battle against. His idealistic plan was that we should hospitalize at the district hospitals, Doctors Hospital in West County, Mount Diablo Central County, and Las Medanas in East County. And it was idealistic. Jeff was very much involved in that, but it was unrealistic. Idealistic, but unrealistic. And the story behind that is the swing vote. Marc Dusanier went from opposing the county hospital to supporting it, along with Jeff and Tom Torlakson in East County. So he's going to talk tonight, and I would encourage you all to go by and thank him individually, as many, because he's complained that nobody remembers him. Well, I hope he'll change his mind after tonight. So I say unrealistic because the hospital districts were gradually phased out. The Hill-Burton funding, and one by one ended, and one by one all the district hospitals were folded into other larger umbrella organizations. It was very moving at the 2010 reunion. We signed off that night at the Hobart's house, and Nancy and Kent graciously hosting us. And Hobie gave an impassioned speech describing how hard it was to go up against Dr. Degnan. And we fortunately have that on tape, and I think we'll be able to post that on a website in the future, along with the other interviews that we did. So Dr. Degnan, he was a man of contradictions. He was a social activist, but also a real estate hustler. He was a political radical with a yacht and a Cadillac. He was a very practical clinician, but an impractical visionary, always haranguing us to go and join the district hospital medical staffs and take it over somehow. He was profane, but he was also a very eloquent Irish storyteller. I will never forget the eulogy he delivered for Ruth Pease. We'll have some time later this afternoon to talk a little bit more about Dr. Degnan for the old timers who knew him. He was always the contrarian, as we saw in the last decade of his life, in particular sailing. He would always tack away from the crowd. And Charlie Berletti was so bothered by that that he refused to go sailing with Degnan anymore. And so activism in the 1970s and 80s among our residents, Joe Selby, making fun of himself as always for transportation purity. And he, after finishing the residency, he joined, I think actually set up the San Antonio City Clinic, inner city clinic. But he eventually became chief of research at Kaiser and did the milestone study on flexible sigmoidoscopies, actually decreasing the mortality from colon cancer screening. Wound up at the Institute of Medicine in D.C. John Rose, who's with us today, you saw his profile in an earlier picture, and he was his pet project was to get rid of the cigarette machine. And here he is. He was featured in Time magazine on providing rural clinic and rural medicine, and in his case, Brownsville. Just to be complete, Naaman Shah, I mentioned he was in India during COVID, and he wrote an article that was published in their equivalent of the Atlantic magazine cover story. Medical politics. Jeff Smith, I've mentioned a couple of times. He went on through many different positions after serving on the board of supervisors down in Santa Clara. I think he was in charge, and his health officer during COVID was, I think this is Sarah Cody, who set the rules really for social distancing. And then Chris Farnatano in our own county, he was picketed by extremists outside of his home, and that made the Los Angeles Times. So administration will discuss the problems of administration in a story circle. And the first round, though, will be teaching. Jay Crockett. These story circles will be at 2 p.m. if you want to join it. Some people, I think, want to just listen to the music. Global Fellowship, Neil and Matt, we hope inside the conference room with slides. Dealing with mistakes, Patty Hennigan, our current residency psychologist, and research, including recent developments in ketamine, David Pepper. At 3, I think there'll definitely be a story circle on physician administrators. And then the question, would you go to medical school again, knowing what you know now? If there's sufficient interest in added qualifications, are they worthwhile, or the Yuba City bus crash? We have some sign-up sheets for people that want to register their late interest. And last, at around 4, I'll hang around to talk more about Degnan's biography for any old-timers that want to hear more. And I'm going to be wandering around with encouraging you to tell your own story into my new iPad video function. And then we've had alums who've received awards. This is my segue to the next group, Jeremy Fish, who was our director for 10 years. It was the 2020 Family Physician of the Year, and he's also heading up currently and started the family practice residency at John Muir Hospital. Jay Aiken works for him. So he'll be leading our next event. So we'll take a break and then we'll reassemble to hear a panel discussion of our former directors. So hurry back.